feel that we should really challenge what our government's doing, challenge what it's doing right now, because we're assassinating people by name. Our president is doing that. We're assassinating American citizens by name. We are, as we kill people in the countries of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia, not only do we kill the target of the decision well, not only do we kill the person who's on the list, but we now have a program where we go after others who come to the aid and rescue of anyone who's been targeted, rightly or wrongly, by the United States. And it's called the TAP-TAP program. That as one missile goes in to a building or to a car, blows it up, then people in the community who come to see what's happened, to see that so-and-so's house has just been blown up, oh my goodness, what's happening? And there aren't any medical services there. There aren't ambulance systems. There aren't things like that. If things happen, if there are calamities in a village, if there's an earthquake, if whatever it is, and people need help, everybody helps. So people go over to try to dig out to see who's in, is anyone still alive. And it is the policy now of the United States that we can follow up with a second missile into that car, into the area, with the people there, or into that house. And not only do we do that, we, the United States of America, target funeral processions. As the person who's been now killed, and I guess our government says, well, we got him, and now they're taking him to rest, and anybody that comes in this funeral procession must be part of the network, must be part of the group around that person, and must have the same beliefs that we think he had.
Plus, we got to get his mom.
Then we go ahead and we send another missile into that funeral procession. So there are lots of reasons why Pakistanis are furious. There are lots of reasons why Afghans are furious, where the United States mistakenly sent a missile into a wedding party, sent a missile into a truck that had stalled in a ravine, a truck that was a gas tanker, and it would stall there, and people from the surrounding area saw the truck there and thought, oh, well, it's only going to Americans, it's stuck there, let's go get the gas. And they were siphoning off the gas, and a whole group of them had gathered to get gas, free gas for us, and the United States targeted that group of people that were around the U.S. tanker and blew them up. So, this year, or actually last year, in 2012, there were more American service members who were killed by what they call green on blue, where Afghans who we are training in either the national police or the national military have turned their weapons on our soldiers who are training them. And there have been more Americans killed in that manner than have been killed in actual combat operations in Afghanistan. And you wonder, why did those Afghans who we are training, who supposedly had been vetted, why did they turn their weapons on our own soldiers, the people that they knew? Well, I would argue that a lot of the people that are recruited for the Afghan military and the Afghan police come from the tribal areas, from the areas along the Pakistani border, the Pashtun areas. They know lots of people who've been killed in these drone strikes, and they're furious about it. So you can say that these drones are not only killing people in other countries, but they're actually the cause of the deaths, in my opinion, of a lot of U.S. military. If you think of, in the United States, are these weapons perhaps endangering us as American citizens? No? Well, I mean, we have operational bases. We have these control centers that are now known throughout the world. At Creech Air Force Base, Nevada, that's where the first drones were flown from. We know Beale Air Force, Wright, Syracuse, New York. These are all places. Do you think people that want to stop these programs might someday try to go after these bases? Do you remember in New York City about a year and a half ago, only because of the vigilance of a hot dog salesman in Times Square, a hot dog salesman who saw a car that was parked in Times Square. And it stayed parked there and nobody was moving it. And the hot dog guy who's been at that corner for years went up to a police officer and said, you know, I think you ought to go check out that car. It's been there a long time. And I just don't feel right about it. And the police went over and started looking in it. And sure enough, there were explosives. Explosives enough that if they had gone off, it would have blown up a good part of Times Square. And they were put there by a Pakistani American that lived in Connecticut, that lives in Connecticut, who said to the police as they were interrogating him that drone program, that American drone program, is killing Pakistanis that have nothing at all to do with the war on terror. If you think about our own other areas of our own government that have suffered losses, have had people killed because of drones. I mean, how many of you all have seen the latest movie about all that area of the world, Zero Dark 30? Have you seen that one yet? Well, it's an interesting one. And one of the scenes in it is of a CIA base in Afghanistan, and where the senior leadership of the Al-Qaeda watch group for the United States of America, 8 of the most senior Al-Qaeda watchers had gone to that base. Some of them had flown from Pakistan, some had flown into the U.S. They had gone to this base in Afghanistan because a key source, a Jordanian doctor who had supposedly infiltrated into Al-Qaeda, was coming out of the Al-Qaeda group and was coming to talk to them about what he had learned. And they were so excited about it that they brought in all their senior people to this little base in Afghanistan to greet him and find out what was happening. And as his car came in and he came into the compound, it should have been checked, as everybody that comes into these compounds is. The senior CIA people said, no, don't check him. He's one of ours. He's one of ours. We don't want to. I mean, we want to show him lots of courtesy because he's infiltrated into Al-Qaeda. And as he came up to the group, he exploded himself. He killed himself. He blew himself up, and the senior leadership of the Al-Qaeda watch cell were killed, 8 of them. And in the letter he left with his wife and Jordan, that they found later, one of the reasons that he said he had to do this was because of what the United States was doing in drones. So these things are dangerous on many, many, many different levels, many levels. And they're a danger, to our whole system of accountability. I want to give out another handout that you'll be hearing a lot about. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to have some confirmation hearings going on for the new Obama cabinet. And one of the people that's been nominated the person nominated for the CIA, the leadership of the CIA, is a guy by the name of John Brennan. And John Brennan is currently the National Security Advisor for Counterterrorism. And in April of this last year, he became the first administration person to publicly talk about something that everybody in the world had known about for 4 or 5 years, the U.S. drone program, both the military drone program and the CIA program. But for the very, very first time, it was publicly acknowledged, he publicly acknowledged that we do have a drone program. Well, that acknowledgement got quite a bit of notoriety through, let's see, let me put this, through a friend of ours. as we've been watching these drones and hearing how many people have been killed and talking to people about, talking to families of victims, many of us have decided to take some action. We've been having protests at Air Force bases. We've had people arrested at Creech Air Force Base, at Syracuse Air Force Base for challenging the drone program. I was arrested in Syracuse in April of 2011. We had people arrested just this last April in Blackman Air Force Base, Missouri. We now have 2 people that are sitting in federal penitentiaries now for setting 1 foot, 1 inch across an arbitrary line, and they're now in jail for 4 months and 6 months. And what they wanted to do was to be able to present a letter to the base commander to say, we really think you ought to rethink these drones. You know, granted, it's not the decision of the base commander, it's the President of the United States and the senior leadership, but you go to where the drones are, or the drone operators are, in order to try to get more publicity about what's going on, so people in these areas of the country will know that there are people in their communities that are firing these missiles from right there in their community, that they are a part, their community is a part of the killings that are going on in Afghanistan and Pakistan, Yemen and Somalia. Well, one of the opportunities we had to bring this to the attention, to really protest not only in front of the White House but in other places to get more attention on this, was when John Brennan made his address about the drones. And he did this at the Woodrow Wilson Foreign Policy Institute in Washington. We weren't able to get the sound on this, but I'll kind of describe to you what's happening. Okay, now. Okay, here's John Brennan starting to talk about the drone program. He didn't.
Your sound is there.
Is it? I'm sorry?
Can you hear something?
Yeah, we can hear something.
Okay.
We're dealing with our drone strikes in Pakistan and in Yemen and Somalia. I speak out on behalf of those innocent victims. They deserve an apology from you, Mr. Brennan. Well, how many people are you willing to sacrifice? Why are you lying to the American people and not saying how many innocents have been killed?
Thank you, Mayor, for expressing your views. There will be time for questions and answers after the presentation.
Congresswoman Jane
Of Pakistan, who is killed because he wanted to document the drone strike. I speak out on behalf of Abdul Rahman al-Awaki, 16-year-old born in Denver, killed in Yemen just because his father was someone we don't like. I speak out on behalf of the Constitution, on behalf of the rule of law. I love the rule of law. I love my country. You're making us less safe by killing so many innocent people around the world. Shame on
And that was Medea Benjamin, one of the co-founders of Code Pink Women for Peace, one of the co-founders of Global Exchange, a great organization that takes people all over the world to crisis areas. And Medea has also, she's the author of one of the new books about drones called Drone Warfare. It's a very, very good book that I would encourage you all to consider getting. You can either read it in hard copy or by Kindle. But this was, what you saw was a person of conscience saying to someone in our government that you really need to think about what's going on. You need to stop your actions, not just think about it. She's not the only one. In fact, could we have the lights back on for a moment? What she was talking to John Brennan about, the CIA drone program, particularly in Pakistan, but it's not just Medea Benjamin now that is calling John Brennan's hand and essentially the president's hand on these drones. This last thing that we handed out is actually the attachment to a two-page letter that Senator Wyden of Oregon has now sent to John Brennan. And Senator Wyden has said, we've been asking you guys questions about this drone program for several years now, and so far you've given us a big fat nothing. You haven't even responded to our questions. You haven't given us anything. And he says, these are things I'm going to be asking you in your confirmation hearing. And if the administration is not forthcoming on information about this drone program, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be information that you and I are going to get initially. It'll probably have to be done in a closed session for classified information. But Senator Wyden is saying, if you don't start answering some of these questions, I'm not going to confirm you as the head of the CIA. And let's just look at the questions. I mean, they're pretty basic. How much evidence does the president need to determine that a particular American can be lawfully killed? Does the president have to provide individual Americans with the opportunity to surrender before killing them? Does this obligation change if the president's determination that a particular American is a valid target has not been publicly announced or publicly reported? Senior officials have stated that the use of lethal force is permitted in situations where capture is not feasible. What is the standard? What standard is used to determine whether it's feasible to capture an American? Is the legal basis for the intelligence community's lethal counterterrorism operations the 2001 Congressional Authority for the Use of Military Force, which was essentially what Afghanistan, the war in Afghanistan, was based on? Or is it just that he's the President of the United States, he's the head of our military, he can do anything he wants to? Are there any geographic limitations on the intelligence community's authority to use legal force against Americans? Do intelligence agencies have the authority to carry out lethal operations inside the United States? So these are the questions that we should be hearing in this confirmation hearing that should be coming up within the next month for John Brennan. And with that, let's take a poll. How many of you all think that John Brennan's going to answer any of these questions? Oops. Well, I kind of agree with you. And yet, aren't these kind of simple questions? I mean, they're just basic questions that we thought we could ask about any weapon system that we have. And yet, for the last years, the Obama administration has steadfastly refused to answer the questions that Congress has been giving to them. So what do we do? What do we as Americans do about this? I mean, we're the citizens. It should be policies that reflect what we, the citizens, think are right for our country. The ethical and moral foundations of our country are really kind of at stake with programs like this. Well, one could say, well, we can write letters to our new congressional delegation. 3 out of 4 are in new positions at least. Colleen Hanabusa is still in her same position, but Mazie Hirono is now a senator. We have Brian Schaaf's a senator. We have Tulsi Gabbard now as a new congresswoman. So we have a new congressional delegation, so to speak. So we can get in touch with them, and we ought to. And we ought to definitely, if you're concerned about drones, we definitely would like for you to get in touch with Congresswoman Colleen Hanabusa, because she is a part of the drone caucus of the United States Congress. There are 58 congressmen and women that are sitting in the drone caucus that are pro-drones. And I would hope that you would send her an email, write her a letter. The Peace Action Group in Maui is using some of their peace cards to write a note on the back of it to all the congressional delegation. I'm against the targeted killings authorized by President Obama and carried out by the CIA drones in Pakistan. These attacks are immoral, highly unpopular, foment anti-American sentiment, and create more terrorists. although this tactic may have some short-term gains, it will not win the hearts and minds of the